The history of Guns N' Roses is filled with tumultuous tales of lies and deceit, with Axl Rose and Slash not uttering a word to each other since Slash quit the band in 1996. It's fair to say they're probably one of the only acts who've truly lived up to the scandal and drama that permeates good old-fashioned rock and roll. More recently, the band's former manager Doug Goldstein spoke about how Slash's initial collaboration with Michael Jackson marked the beginning of the end for the band. He detailed how the collaboration came about shortly after Axl Rose had revealed to Interview magazine that he was sexually abused by his father as a child. Goldstein refers to accusations made against Jackson, highlighting Slash's insensitivity to Rose's traumatic past. So Axl does that huge interview. He bears his deepest, darkest secret, and Slash comes to my room 2 months later and says, "Hey, I'm gonna play with Michael Jackson." "What? No," said Goldstein. "So everybody in the industry knows that Eddie Van Halen got $1 million for Beat It," I said. "At least let me negotiate the deal." Slash said, "It's already negotiated. He's given me a big screen TV." "Hang on, what?" "He's going to give me one of those big 72-inch screen TVs." From Axl's point of view, that was the only problem. He could ignore the drugs and the alcohol, but never the child abuse. Goldstein ends with saying that after this incident, Axl never again thought Slash as his brother. With Michael Jackson's mere presence pulling apart one of the most prolific rock groups of all time is quite the revelation, if it wasn't for the multiple inaccuracies in Doug Goldstein's story. Firstly, Michael Jackson was first accused of charges in August 1993, but worked with Slash for the first time 2 years prior to this in 1991. Therefore, Axl Rose could not have possibly opposed to Slash working with Michael Jackson in 1991 due to child abuse allegations. Secondly, the story Doug Goldstein alleged was that Slash was motivated to work with Jackson because of the fact that Eddie Van Halen was paid $1 million to do the guitar solo for Beat It. Only Eddie Van Halen did not get paid back then, as he did the solo because he liked the song free of charge. Slash recently revealed the truth behind how his first musical collaboration with Jackson came about. That he had received a call one day from his manager who told him, "Michael is trying to get in touch with you," to which his reply was a shocked, "Wow." The world-famous guitarist said, "So I called him back and he wanted me to play on Dangerous."
And I was pretty starstruck, it's like, really? In a way, you get that feeling of like, I guess I have arrived, And so I had them give him my hotel number, and he called me up in my room, and it was that voice, on the other end of the phone. And he said, "I'd like you to play on my record," So I was like, okay,
We made a date and I went down to the record plant in Hollywood, and he was there with Brooke Shields. That was very surreal. He continued, "These were two people that I'd sort of grown up with in a way." So we hung out for 2 minutes and they went off to dinner and left me with his song. I did my thing. He really dug it, and afterwards, he kept asking me if I'd be into doing this or doing that. I do some shows here and there, and it was fun because he was such a pro and he was such a f***ing talent.
And I showed up there, and he was there, and he was with Brooke Shields, right?
Oh, really?
And they were dating, or they had just started dating at that point. And so he just, so I met the two of them, and then they took off to go have dinner, and he just gave me free reign at the studio. That's it.
Great.
So we got on great.
Did he say much?
No, he didn't.
He doesn't, did
he didn't really say much.
What did he say, like, "Here's a track, just play what you want"?
Yeah, that's basically it.
As a result of this initial meeting, Slash played the lead guitar on Michael Jackson's Give In To Me from his Dangerous album. Stylistically, Give In To Me is a hard rock track, but also considered a heavy metal ballad with an aggressive sexual flavor. The music video for Give In To Me features Jackson with his band including Slash, performing the song on stage at an indoor rock concert. Loud explosions are later heard in the video, with visuals of stylized electrical arcs and Jackson dancing as they run down his body. Michael Jackson debuted the single's music video during his landmark interview with Oprah Winfrey on February 10, 1993. The track was a modest hit for the artist, only being released in Europe, Australia, and New Zealand. Speaking about Jackson, Slash said, "He was so amazingly musically fluid, such a treat to be around." When asked what it was like to be around the megastar, Slash replied, "On stage, his whole professional thing was really where he clicked. When he wasn't working or in production or whatever, it was then you could see that he was sort of at the mercy of his own success. All the people he had around him, the tugging and the yes people, you could tell that he knew 90% of them were full of shit. I felt sorry for him in that sense." Many mistakenly believe that Slash also played on Michael Jackson's Black or White from the same album, but the song's main riff was played by another industry guitarist, Billy Buttrell. I did not play on that song, remarking that the guitars were not his sound, but says that the confusion was made because he played the riff during live performances of the song. With everything he witnessed being around Jackson, Slash did say that he felt sorry for the late singer after making a surprise appearance during a Dangerous World Tour concert in Japan. I did a couple of shows with Michael in Tokyo and saw how this whole massive thing worked, and he was the center of it. The only time I felt like he was in any kind of comfort zone was when he was actually on stage. He continued, "Right after that, Guns came to town and did our shows, and our success was massive. But it wasn't as overwhelming as what Michael was going through. It was just an interesting light, looking at the two things and being careful about what you wished for." At that point, Guns N' Roses were getting pretty big and beginning to live in the bubble that massive artists live in. So it was interesting to see someone who was already entrenched in that world, albeit with 3 times the entourage. Everything just becomes bigger and bigger and less realistic. The amount of bullshit surrounding you, because there was nobody in his entourage that he could 100% trust. Axl Rose fired their guitarist Gilby Clarke in 1994. Guns N' Roses, who were then heavily addicted to drugs, were often 1 to 2 hours late for their shows. Not to mention when Axl attacked the fan who was recording their concert, and as a result caused mayhem at the arena and 10 fans were injured. Guns N' Roses split in 1996 as a result of a dispute between Axl and Slash over who was to blame for their massive commercial disappointment of their 1993 album, The Spaghetti Incident. Soon after their beef, Slash left the group to pursue a solo career, and by 1997 Guns N' Roses had lost their popularity and fell apart. This ultimately had nothing to do with Michael Jackson and Slash's musical partnership. Axl Rose had problems with other band members too, and not just Slash. On a positive note, Axl had great admiration for Jackson and declared his song Man in the Mirror as one of his favorite songs. Michael Jackson and Slash continued to collaborate professionally when in 1995 he played the guitar on DS from Jackson's History album. He also appeared on Morphine from the 1997 remix album Blood on the Dance Floor. And a few years later in 2001 when Slash played on Privacy from Jackson's very last studio album, Invincible. Slash also joined Michael Jackson on stage many times, over 50 to be exact, with the most notable being at the 1995 MTV Video Music Awards playing Black or White and the intro to Billie Jean. The very last time the two giants shared a stage together was on both the 2001 Michael Jackson 30th Anniversary Special concerts that took place in New York City, where he played Black or White and Beat It. Slash faced a medical crisis of his own while appearing at Jackson's anniversary concert at Madison Square Garden. "Years of drinking had swollen my heart to the point of bursting," he recalls. "It reached the point where the doctors gave me between 6 days and 6 weeks to live. They installed a defibrillator to keep my heart from stopping and keep it beating at a steady rate. I was out of circulation for 4 months before I picked up a guitar. But in 2001, I agreed to play at Michael's celebration. Once I get up on stage, my heart rate skyrockets. I was suddenly hit in the chest by a shock, and my vision flooded with electric blue light. I thought I had a short circuit in a guitar cable or a photographer's flash had popped in my eyes. Each time it happened, I had to stand there and make it look as if everything was normal. I saw it later on TV and you couldn't tell, so I guess I pulled it off. It was extremely disconcerting until I figured out what was what." Word is that when Slash was recording his first solo album in the summer of 2009, he considered calling up his old friend and asking him to guest on the album. Yes, that's true. The thought did cross my mind, and this was something he might have been interested to do. Unfortunately, Jackson was in rehearsals for his ill-fated This Is It concert series in London at the time, so Slash never made the call. He put the idea on the long finger, figuring he could return to it at some later date. However, a couple of weeks later, Slash finds out that he was too late, and Jackson had in fact died at the age of 50.
Michael, I only knew him on for the most part, a professional level. I don't even think when he attempted to be any closer than that, I even allowed it, because it's too crazy. There's being famous, and then there's being that kind of famous, and that's a crazy world to be in, because you have no sense of reality. Guns N' Roses was probably the biggest stadium rock band at the time. And then you have Michael, who was the sort of Elvis Presley of the period. And it's like, that's a scary thing. And he was just dealing with it, and I felt for him because he, as an artist, one of the genius artists, most genius artists I'd ever really been around. And, you know, sort of stuck in this world where nobody is real. You know, nobody will talk to him in a real fashion. Everybody's sort of around him so they can gain something from him and so on and so forth. It's a very lonely situation.
Check out our other videos on Michael Jackson's musical rivalries, and also visit our MJ store by clicking our link in the description. Thank you for watching The Detail. We'll see you next time.